the intuitive part, you don't need any training. You don't need any form of initiation. You don't need any form of rite of passage to be intuitive. Because intuition is part and parcel of our existence. It's part and parcel of who we are. One other form of communication with the divine is through clairvoyance. We have clairaudience, clairsentience, intuition, dreams, revelations. All these are forms of self-divination. If you want to inquire from the cosmos, these are natural means and natural phenomena that the universe have already placed all these in us, where we can communicate with the divine. However, based on your level of spiritual development, that will determine how far you can go. That will determine how deep your information, will be coming from, or the levels that your information will be coming from. So before we go into those levels, you see, we are seated here and we are having communications, trying to decipher the environment. Everything that we are doing at this particular moment is basically to break through, to understand the atmosphere. When you are standing here and you look up, whatever you see with your eyes is the atmosphere. It is another sphere of existence. The atmosphere is another sphere. The atmos, if you really spell the atmos, you get atoms. So in this our environment, in this physical environment where your eyes can see, that is where atoms are able to operate. Physical atoms are able to operate towards. So from the ground to where your eyes will see, that is the atmosphere. The atmosphere has its own different energies. It has its own forms of spirits. It has its own forms of deities and divinities and powers that you can access. Above the atmosphere is another level called the stratosphere, or the hemisphere. The hemisphere is another sphere of existence. Within that, it has its own powers, its own energies, it has its own divinities, it has its own vibrations and colors. That you cannot use atmospheric pressure, or you cannot use atmospheric energy to access hemispheric energy. And then above the hemisphere is the stratosphere. That is another sphere of existence, which is totally different from the atmosphere and then the hemisphere. But all of them follow a particular structure, a particular hierarchy, a particular order of tapping into those existence and tapping into those energies for clarification, for communication. Then you go all the way to ionosphere. When you enter into the ionosphere, that is a whole different sphere of existence. You keep going through these different spheres until you get to space. And then in the realms of space, there are levels to space per se. So we are even struggling as human beings just to understand the atmosphere. Just understanding the basic form of our sphere of existence, which is the atmosphere, is a big challenge for us. So, that breaking through from the atmosphere to the hemisphere, to the stratosphere, to the ionosphere, to all these different levels, takes a lot of training, a lot of discipline. Now, one of the basics, like I was saying, which is the intuition. Over here in Africa, we believe that the soul contains, the soul is the presence of God in every human being. Anything that has a soul has a presence of God in it. So your soul already has the blueprint for your existence of what you are going to be on earth. Whenever you came on earth to become or not to become is determined by your soul. Because when your soul was leaving its place of existence to take this physical body, we over here we call it okra or kra. The word kra in Kemet is ka, but over here we say kra. Means like, for instance, if I want to go to Carnation right now, I need to leave a message behind for somebody to know where exactly I am going. That is what we say okra. Okra means to leave a message behind as to where you are going. The crowd said we call Carnation, the crowd said we call. So that is the okra. So before the soul took the physical body, it had already negotiated with the Creator, with the ancestors, with divinities, as to where it was coming to. Whether it was going to appear or manifest in Ghana, the soul had already bargained that. What the soul was going to be had already been bargained. So whatever the soul needs or needed to exist, to become the best of itself, everything had already been given to the soul. So the soul is perfect. The angels that the soul needs to communicate with, the divinities that the soul needs to communicate with, already was attached to the soul before it took this flesh. But when the soul takes the flesh, because the flesh has weaknesses, the flesh has lust, the flesh has fear, the flesh has uncertainty. So the soul spends its existence in constant friction with the flesh. The soul has the ability to just say, let it be, and it will be. But the soul becomes limited in this body because the body has fear. The soul knows it can say, let it be, but the body is afraid to say, let it be. So there's always a constant friction of possibilities and impossibilities. So because the body goes through all this process, and then they go through all these fears, this pain, and these lust, and these low vibrational charges, it gets to a point where the soul is not able to take charge and take command and be the presence of God in you. So then it needs to rely on the angelic beings that it came here with. So that is where divination comes in. Without the fear, without the obstruction, without all the things that keeps us at a lower vibrational level, we should be able to see as God sees. We should be able to hear as God hears. We should be able to say as God says, and we should be able to manifest as God manifests, because we are the direct representatives of God on earth, imbibed by a living soul. And this soul, like I said in the beginning, is the presence of God amongst us. So whenever God, the Creator, is able to manifest, you should be able to manifest the replica of it. If God is able to make a bed, then human beings have the power to make a replica of a bed. Anything that God has created, human beings have created a replica of it. God created the sun, and we created what? The bulb, the light bulb. Right? Which is a replica of what the divine is able to do what to do. But because we have lost touch with our divinity, and we've lost touch with that power, so now we need to rely on angelic beings. And these angelic beings used to be our messengers who used to convey messages between where our soul came from and our existence here on earth. They used to give us the information as to what we do not see and what we can see. So, the first form was the intuition, or to develop that ability where you speak with your angelic beings naturally, where they give you direction, and this is also manifested in our dream or vision state. A dream is different from a vision. Dreams are different from a vision. Yes. You can overeat and have a bad dream.
Jeez.
Yes, you can overeat and have a bad dream that you might think is a nightmare. It's not a nightmare. You just had too much to drink and you just had too much to eat. You understand? A vision is something that you remember vividly, even if it takes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. You can play back what you saw. You can say exactly what you saw, how you saw it. You can remember the words. You can remember everything vividly. That is a vision. That is not a dream. Dream, alcohol can give you dreams. Weed can give you dreams. Intoxicants can give you dreams. Bad food can give you dreams. You understand? But it takes something special to break into the realms of vision. So when you are asleep, how many of you have slept, had a dream where you are in a different country, but you are still asleep in your country? Or experienced that? Okay. So when somebody goes into coma, right? When somebody goes into coma, they can be in that state for like say 10 years. They are not dead. Because the soul has not left the body. You understand? The spirit is still with the body. But because of the shock, the soul has left the body, standing over the body, but it has not severed the cord that exists between the physical and the soul level. So the moment the soul leaves the body, that person is going to give up the ghost. By giving up the ghost, the only moment somebody gives up the ghost is when they stop breathing. When you stop breathing, you give up the ghost. The same way, when you are having a dream and you close your eyes and you see yourself, like you are here, you see yourself in America, it is not your spirit that has traveled, it is the soul in you that has traveled. Right? The soul has gone on its internal activities to seek for information that pertains to your physical body. But because you are still breathing, once you stop breathing, you become non-existent. But the spirit